The obituaries were already on the wires. We told the resident on duty at the ICU that the television in her room had to be turned off. The resident said that television news could be helpful in maintaining brain activity in unconscious patients. He said that her father had died. It was a news story, and she could not be allowed to learn from CNN that her father was dead. The set was turned off. When we went back that night, the set was back on. We told them again. The next morning, when I walked into the ICU, there was a sign taped up. Dead father, no TV. For all I know now, I imagined that. For all I know now is a metaphor for how hard I had to work at that hospital to get my point across, to keep her alive, to do for her what I failed to do for her father. One morning in Malibu, when John and I were having a fight, he took it out on Quintana. She cried. I told her that she and I were leaving. She and I would go to LAX, and she and I would fly away from him. And she told me that we couldn't do that to him. Even at 6. Did she think herself safer with him than with me? Were they safe only with each other? But I failed her as I failed him. I continued to wait. I continued to play alone. I mentioned this to no one. Well, for one thing, no one wants to hear it. They want to believe that I'm being strong. But to myself, I'm invisible, incorporeal. I have crossed one of those rivers that divide the living from the dead. And I feel for the first time the power in the image of the rivers, the Styx, the Lethe, the cloaked ferryman with his pole. I saw the ferryman. I heard the ferryman speak. It was the ferryman who asked if I had the fare. John believed he was dying. He told me so repeatedly. I dismissed this. I said he was merely depressed. I told him he was being Irish. But what did he mean when he said in the taxi that everything he had done was worthless? Why was he assessing his life? Why was he taking so final a view? And what view did I take? What did I say? Did I say the equivalent of, don't be ridiculous, don't pull focus, what shall we do for dinner? Is that what the living always say to the dying? What shall we do for dinner? I am reading the literature. I am searching for clues. In The Hour of Our Death, it points out that death, as it appears in the literature of the Middle Ages, gives advance warning of its arrival, even if sudden or accidental. And what did Gawain say when asked, "Ah, good, my lord, think you then so soon to die?" "I tell you that I shall not live 2 days," Gawain said. And didn't he call that one right? I mean, do they get a message? Or do they will it? Do you know what else he said to me that night when we were leaving Beth Israel? He said, "I don't think I'm up for this." I said, "You don't get a choice." I wondered since if he did. For some months he had been saying that we weren't having any fun. He meant doing things not because we were expected to do them or had always done them or should do them. He meant because we wanted to do them. He meant wanting. He meant living. He wanted, for example, to go to Paris. I said we had too much to do. He said he had a sense that if he did not go to Paris right now, November, he would never again go to Paris. That settles it then, we're going, I said. Meaning this was no longer discussion, it was now blackmail, and you just escalated it. All right, you did it, you got the last word, he said when he left the table. We didn't speak in any meaningful way for 36 hours. When we resumed speaking, we went to Paris. And we walked in the rain in the Luxembourg Gardens, and when it got dark at 3 in the afternoon, we swam in the pool on the Bristol roof and watched the lights on the Eiffel Tower. How could I have so missed the signals? Had he not told me? I tell you that I shall not live 2 days. And from the last afternoon we swam in the pool on the Bristol roof, he lived 32 days. The day I finally told Quintana that her father was dead was January 15th, 2004. Oh, I didn't intend to tell her that day. I didn't even intend to see her. I knew that if she saw me, she would ask where her father was, and I would have to tell her. Our plan was that she would wake and see Jerry, and that for as many hours or days as she was in and out, she would not think to ask where her mother and father were. Well, we conveyed this plan to the ICU team and got the team on board. Nevertheless, she was barely awake one morning when an aide volunteered that her mother was just down the hall. She asked the logical question, if she's just down the hall, why doesn't she come in? Where's Dad? She whispered when she saw me. I told her. I stressed the long history and cardiac problems and the apparent suddenness, but the actual reality of his cardiac failure. Of course, I did not believe this to be true myself, but it was the story I was telling. She cried when she heard the news. Jerry and I held her. She tried to talk. She hallucinated that she had spent the past month in Taipei, that the space shuttle to Tokyo had developed mechanical difficulties and was diverted to Taipei. She fell back into sleep. "How's Dad?" she asked when she saw me that evening. I told her again. But how is he now? You see, she had absorbed the event, but not the outcome. And that was the flaw in the story I was telling. I could never make the outcome convincing. There came a day when it occurred to me that I should give his clothes away. Oh, many people have mentioned the necessity for doing this, usually in the guise of helping, but I resisted. I didn't need help. I could manage this. I began. I filled empty bags with his t-shirts, sweatpants, socks, and Brooks Brothers shorts. A few weeks later, I assembled more empty bags. I was not yet prepared to address his suits, shirts, or jackets, but thought I could handle the shoes. I stopped at the door to the room. I could not give away his shoes. I stood there a moment, then realized why. He would need shoes if he was to return. The recognition of this thought by no means eradicated the thought. Magical thinking is a phrase I learned reading anthropology. Primitive cultures operate on magical thinking, if thinking. If we sacrifice the virgin, the rain will come back. If I keep his shoes. I now see the autopsy as An early example of this line of thinking, I wanted the autopsy. In the course of research, I watched autopsies. I know exactly what happens. The face peeled down, the chest open like a chicken in a butcher case. But I still wanted the autopsy. And here was my reasoning. An autopsy could show that what had gone wrong was no more than a transitory blockage or arrhythmia. If so, the reasoning went, they might be able to fix it. Quintana is out of the hospital. We can do the funeral. St. John the Divine. Jerry walked Quintana to the pulpit, still weak but standing very straight in a black dress, in the same cathedral where she had been married 8 months before. She read a poem she had written to her father. I love you more than even one more day. Everyone except Quintana now referred to John in the past. You see, I succeeded. I made this happen. I convinced them they said goodbye. You see, I played along, I followed the rituals, I made the arrangements. I even acknowledged to the public that he was dead, and it still didn't bring him back. And after Quintana said, I love you more than even one more day, she said, as you used to say to me. Yes, yes, yes. Many people have mentioned that John and Quintana and I were unusually dependent on one another. Is unusual dependency another way of saying married? Husband and wife? Parent and child? And on the occasion when John gave Q that red car with the Q plate, I gave her a gold Tiffany bangle, like this one. Let me do some chronology here, just to assure you I can still do dates. And neurologists are very big on dates. I would learn later when they kept asking Q what the date was, and I never knew myself. When it was all I could do to get out of bed in the morning and do the crossword with breakfast. Oh, that's another thing to remember. Mornings are when you need to mount a frontal assault on this self-pity question. Get out of bed, eat breakfast, do the crossword, memorize the date, and walk briskly into the unit and go hand to hand with any hapless resident that gets caught in your line of vision. If you want to manage this case, I'm signing off, one of them finally said to me. I counted that a victory. Must you always be right? John said that morning in Malibu when I told Q we would go to LAX and fly away from him. And we can't do that to him, she said. And we didn't. We stayed. It was he who